Okay, we will begin. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our August 18th Yorktown Central School District community presentation to provide our school community with an update on our plans to reopen schools and our planning to reopen schools. I will begin first by introducing our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction joining us this morning, Ms. Lisa O'Shea. Ms. O'Shea, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And Mrs. Forsberg, our Director of Technology, is joining us along with Ms. Burns to help produce this presentation and to have this presentation available to you on our websites. And we appreciate Ms. Forsberg and Ms. Burns being here with us this morning as well. Our agenda for this morning is just quite simply to provide our community with a reopening update. There are some very specific items that we will discuss. There's a brief agenda that's provided on this page. We will begin, and I believe it's appropriate in light of the circumstances to always begin with an update on health and safety and the measures that the school district has taken. In my letter to the community last week, one of the frequently asked questions that we have been receiving is with regard to the health and safety measures that the school district is taking. So those measures were included in last week's letter. They're included in this presentation as well, and they'll be included in all of our presentations because this is a matter of health and safety for our faculty, staff, and students. With regard to what has changed from the last update, well, last evening, Ms. O'Shea and I gave an update to the community, and we shared what had changed from our previous video presentation. And that is that we have now been able to secure MERV 13 filtering for all of the air conditioned units in the school district. Prior to this week, we had secured most, but not all, of our air conditioning units to have MERV 13 filtration. Now, what's the importance of MERV 13 filtration? It is widely believed to filter out virus particles. So I'll speak to the air conditioning and the unit ventilators. We have received some questions asking for clarification on what each unit does and how we'll ventilate the classrooms. So I just want to share briefly with our school community the differences between the unit ventilator and the air conditioning and how we're going to be using them within our classrooms. So within our instructional spaces, there are unit ventilators. That's nothing new. It's nothing new to our schools. It's something that is a requirement from the state education department. We're required to introduce, I believe it's 15 to 16 cubic feet per minute of air per occupant in the room. So 15 to 16 cubic feet per minute of fresh air introduced to the classroom. Now, you can open the windows, but there's no guarantee that you will be introducing that amount of fresh air. So the unit ventilators, which are often mounted along the windowsill, are serving to introduce fresh air. So it's taking outside air, it's running it through a filter. It's not a MERV 13 filter. It's running it through a filter to filter out pollen and pollutants in the air. And it's introducing fresh air into the classroom from the outside. Now that's one device and one unit in the classroom. There is also air conditioning in the vast majority of our classrooms. And for those classrooms that do not have air conditioning, some of our small group instructional spaces don't have air conditioning. We were on a schedule. COVID upended our spring and really disrupted the schedule, and now we're returning to the schedule. So we are looking to secure air conditioners in most, if not all, of the other classroom spaces. We're looking to introduce air conditioning to our cafeterias and our gymnasiums through a capital project next summer. With regard to the air conditioners in the classroom, the filtration has been changed to include a MERV 13 filter. So there are three different types of air conditioners within our school district. There are window air conditioning units. There are these air conditioning units referred to as mini split systems. They're the rectangular wall-mounted units, and they're very quiet. You may have seen them in residential applications as well. And then there are central air conditioning units. So there are 3 different types of units. We have been able to secure filtering for all 3 different types of units at the MERV 13, which is believed to filter out particles. Now, the air conditioners will recycle the air in the classroom. It will recirculate the air. However, that will be recirculated through the MERV 13 filter. So we have the unit ventilators that will introduce the fresh air from the outside. And then we have the air conditioning units that will take the air in the classroom and recirculate that air through the MERV 13 filtration. So that is an important development, a really important update for our school district with regard to health and safety. All of the other items that we discussed will continue to be employed. For those who viewed the first presentation and who saw the letter from last week, you'll certainly know that the items here have been discussed previously. There are some supply chain concerns that we're having. We're not the only school district trying to reopen. There are districts not only in New York, but across the Northeast and across the country. And there are limited numbers of providers for some of the items. So we're looking at the polycarbonate barriers. We're looking at the portable sinks with specific anticipated arrival dates and installation dates. We have received the 60,000 disposable masks, so the masks have already been secured. But there are some supply chain items that we're certainly cognizant of. So the MERV 13, we've received some. We haven't received all of the filtration fabric that we'll need to outfit our air conditioning units. We're monitoring that. That was included as part of our plan for reopening that went to the state education department, that went to the New York State Department of Health, and that would be a required condition for our reopening. So I share that with you. We're monitoring the situation on all of the different safety measures that we're taking to ensure timely arrival and installation. Even with all of the health and safety measures, and Yorktown has taken such a strong stance in the health and safety measures, and we've been very proactive in the measures that we've taken. Even with that said, I could never promise you that COVID could not turn up in our schools. We're being proactive, we're being responsible, we're creating the safest possible atmosphere, we're requiring masks be worn throughout the day on transportation, we're requiring disinfection daily, multiple disinfections of high-touch surfaces and bathrooms. We are taking every possible step that a school district can take to provide for the health and safety of children and our staff. I believe that's a given. I believe that's a known entity. What's unknown is how prevalent the virus will be in the community and how prevalent community spread of the virus can be. We will take our steps and we will take them very carefully. However, I would be disingenuous if I told you that COVID could never exist in our schools. So I did want to share that, and it's something that I begin just about every meeting with, because I do want to be honest and transparent with our faculty, our staff, and certainly our community. With regard to some of the additional items on the agenda, I did want to speak to briefly the full remote learning and the hybrid learning. There are 2 options available. I believe our schools are safe to reopen. I believe that we have taken the safety measures necessary for me to make that statement. However, I understand that there are concerns about returning children to school, and I understand that there's an uneasy feeling and there's worry, and that's been communicated to me, and we understand that. We have offered a full remote learning option to our families. We've had several hundred families choose to participate in the full remote learning model. The registration ends this evening at 11:59 p.m. I look forward at midnight to looking through the list to just understand what it is that we can expect with regard to the allocation of students to the full remote learning model and to the hybrid model. In the full remote learning model, we will have a teacher dedicated to the class. There will be a teacher who is teaching that class asynchronously and synchronously. So there will be live synchronous learning in some of the content areas, and then there will be some synchronous, asynchronous opportunities. A child, whether they're K-5 or grade 6-12, will not be on the computer for 7 hours a day. Our expectation is that they're not in live synchronous or asynchronous learning for the entire school day. There will be some flexibility. However, there will be expectations that the child is logged on at a specific time or specific times during the school day. In grades 6 through 12, students will follow their academic schedule. They'll be live and synchronous for the start of the school year. Approximately a month after the start of the school year, we'll assess which subjects will remain live and which subjects will move to an asynchronous environment. Balance is the goal in this situation. We don't want a student going from 7:30 until 2:30 live straight through the day without break. There's no research that supports that being an appropriate model. We want to create some balance, some flexibility for the students who are participating in the fully remote model. We're asking for a semester-long commitment. There will be a process. One of the frequently asked questions is, if we try the full remote and it's not working for us, can we then come into the hybrid model? The short answer to that is yes, there will be a process to allow for that. So now the student transitions from fully remote to hybrid. And for whatever reason, the hybrid model is working and the student wants to return to fully remote, we can accommodate that, but there will not be a change after that. That will be the model. You've experienced both. That will be the model. We're asking for a semester-long commitment where there will be a process. The process will not automatically lead to a change in placement. So I do want to share with you that the semester-long commitment is an expectation on my part. The semester-long commitment is done for a purpose. Much of our scheduling is done in semester blocks of time, and to have students one by one coming in and out of a program can disrupt learning. It disrupts the continuity for the teacher. It disrupts continuity for the class. It disrupts continuity for the child. So we're trying to create an environment that can facilitate greater continuity of learning for our students, for our classes as a whole, and certainly for the teaching that the teachers are doing. With regard to the hybrid model, as I shared in our first update, we are going with an A-B model. The Mondays in September and possibly beyond September will be fully remote. We're going to use that time for professional development day for our teachers. We'll have some activities available for students, but this is a new environment for our faculty and staff, and we're sensitive to the learning that they will do so that they can best meet the needs of our students. And we want to provide them with the time to do that. So in September, Mondays will be fully remote. That may go beyond September. We will know more after we have lived with the model for a bit. In-person learning days will be very typical of a school day, of a normal school day for children. The remote learning days will have a combination of live synchronous and asynchronous instruction, and we're working through the details, and so Shay will speak to that a little later when we go to the Q&A portion. There will be a combination. Again, on the remote day, the students will have some asynchronous time, some synchronous time. There will be more asynchronous than synchronous in my estimation of the allocation of time. There will be more asynchronous than synchronous time. Again, it's a semester-long commitment with a process to change before the semester. So we would like to see a commitment for the entire school year. However, I can't tell you what the spring will look like. We may be in a very different position than we are, one way or the other. The virus may be in a place where the social distancing requirements can be relaxed, and social distancing requirements are what are ultimately determining the capacity that we can fit in our classrooms. We can't adhere to the 6 feet or 3 feet or 12 feet or 9 feet. We can't adhere to the 6 feet of social distancing and have a full classroom of students. the geometry doesn't work in that regard. So in the spring, I couldn't tell you where we will be. Will the social distancing requirements be relaxed? Me. Sorry about that. Will the social distancing requirements be relaxed? Will we be in a place of full remote learning as we were last spring? I don't think any of us can tell you that with any level of certainty, because this is such a fluid situation, and what we're doing is being adaptable, being agile, and being able to respond to the different situations that present themselves, which is why districts were required to present 3 different plans to the State Education Department, the Department of Health, and the Governor's Office. So we will be prepared for whatever the spring may bring, but we are asking for a semester-long commitment at the least. In addition, with the full remote model, I wanted to clarify some of the questions that I received with regard to the New York State Public High Schools Athletic Association and student participation in extracurricular athletics or co-curricular clubs and athletics. There's a difference between being in the fully remote model and then participating in homeschooling. Homeschooling, you're essentially pulling your child from the district and providing them with an individualized home instruction plan, referred to as an IHIP. That is a different model than the fully remote model, where the student is enrolled in the school district, participating in school activities, participating in the learning in the school. However, they're doing this from home. They're using the same resources that are used in the school. It's the same instructional program with our faculty and staff delivering the program. So there is a difference from the fully remote model and a homeschool model. With the fully remote model, the New York State Public High Schools Athletic Association released a statement last week indicating that those who participate in athletics, those who participate in a fully remote learning model may participate in interscholastic sports. With regard to supervised remote learning, one of the questions that I've received time and time again from many in our community is a concern for their childcare on the remote days. And that's a very real concern. It's one that I empathize with. It's one that I understand. It's one that our entire team understands. And the Yorktown Central School District is not a child care provider, so we're working with child care providers to provide this service. Now, there is a lengthy process for a child care provider to become licensed at a facility. So while a child care provider may have a license down the street from our school, they don't necessarily have a license to operate within our school. They may have a license at their facility, but they may not have the capacity to accommodate the number of students who may need to be part of the program. So what we have done, first, we've spent hours on the phone with the Westchester County offices, and they've been helpful in helping us to navigate an unknown terrain for us. So where we have ultimately landed is we are going to be contracting with a childcare provider. While their licensing is under review, the district is going to begin the program, because we understand that when we start school, that's when the service is needed. It doesn't start when the licensure of the organization coming in to run the program is granted. The need starts when school starts. So the district is going to begin the program. It's our supervised remote learning center. It will take place at French Hill School. French Hill is not quite school ready. It's not a school ready facility. The amount of money that it would take to upgrade the facility, to make it school ready, to provide the environment that our students deserve, and the number of staff that would have to be hired to be part of the program, is something our budget could not feasibly do, and certainly not in a tax cap environment. So we're going to start the program. We're going to start it at French Hill. I believe it's sufficient for a supervised remote learning, a daycare program. French Hill can serve that purpose. We can begin the program In September, we will continue to oversee the program until the third-party organization is identified and licensed at that facility. At that point, the third-party organization will assume responsibility for the program. They are in the childcare business and they will continue to bring that program forward. We believe that we've identified space for 100 students on A days and another 100 students on the B days. It could be a little bit more. We're still looking at some additional space. It will be open to students in grades K through 6. It's open to students in the hybrid learning program on their remote days only. This program is not something that will be extended to those who are on a fully remote model, because remember, the idea of fully remote versus hybrid is a choice about safety. It's a choice about safety of the child, safety of the family. So if a family is making the choice to keep their children home remotely, full time, we understand that. We offer the option for that reason. We completely understand that. And the conclusion, the logical conclusion there is that there's a concern about bringing children into this congregate setting like a school. So if they're not coming into the school, they would not be coming into a school-sponsored program either. So that would be a school-sponsored childcare or a remote learning program. The hours are approximately 8 to 4, and speaking to some of the providers, they're interested in extending those times on the front end and on the back end. That will be something that they will do once they have assumed the contract. The fee is approximately $45 to $50 per day. That goes right to the childcare provider. In the interim, as the district is running this, we're setting rates. The district's not allowed to make money on this, and we're not allowed to lose money on this. We have to break even, and we have to cover our expenses. So the district is not permitted to profit in any way, nor is the district permitted to lose money providing a childcare service to families. It could be construed as a gift of public funds, which the district would not do. So we have analyzed the cost to operate the program. That's supervision, that's the health screenings, that's some of the other measures that we're going to have to implement. And we have identified that cost to be somewhere between $45 and $50 per day. And again, we're still trying to reduce those costs as best we can, but that's approximately where we'll be. The third-party provider will be responsible for the health screening, social distancing, and the other safety measures noted in our reopening plan. So there will be the disinfection of the spaces, there will be the mask requirements and the other measures that are noted in our plan. There will not necessarily be the MERV 13 filtration on the ventilation system. I don't believe that we have the capacity to do that. However, there are ventilation mechanisms to introduce fresh air into the classroom. So that is an update on our supervised remote learning center. I ask that you hold off on emails. I don't have the information. This is everything that we know right now. I know nothing more. The registration is not open at this point. Emailing me will not get you to the front of the line for registration in just full transparency and full candor. This is what I know. I will know more Friday afternoon during the 5 p.m. presentation to the community, and we will share that information Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. But I ask for your patience. I ask for your understanding. I know many families have already taken the initiative to secure childcare, which is terrific, and that's absolutely wonderful. This is another option, and this is just the school district trying to help in any way that we can by identifying another option for members of our community. So I apologize, I misspoke. The update that I will provide is Thursday at 5 p.m., not Friday at 5 p.m. So I ask that that any questions at that point will likely be answered Thursday at 5 p.m. at our update. So with regard to the supervised remote learning center, these are the bullets that we're aware of. This is what we know right now. We're hoping to have more definitive details Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. COVID testing is another question that seems to be coming up. It's something that has been conflicted in its messaging from various state entities. Some entities are suggesting that schools should be testing. The New York State Education Department, in their 145-page guidance, has indicated that schools should not be testing. We should be deferring to the medical experts, and we will be deferring to the medical experts. We will be working through the family with their physician or through AFC Urgent Care to provide testing for those who are recommended to be tested. There are also federal privacy concerns about requiring testing of all students en masse. We are referring to the document that was shared with us by the State Education Department, and we certainly are consulting with our medical director. Students who are recommended to take a COVID test should be done through their family physician, or we have a great partnership with AFC Urgent Care. I spoke to Dr. Gupta of AFC Urgent Care yesterday. We had a wonderful conversation about the testing and the process by which the testing is done and gets sent to a lab, and then the results are returned to the family. We are trusting the medical experts. We are trying to follow their advice and their recommendations, and we are following their advice and their recommendations, and that includes the County Department of Health, with whom we have a great relationship. We are also, I also want to clarify the idea of clinically diagnosed cases of COVID-19. There were some questions that arose in the FAQ about clinically diagnosed cases and what does that mean? There are times when the labs are stretched and the test results of COVID, I've heard, can take 2 days. They can take upwards of 7 days. And I've anecdotally have heard that they have taken longer for results to return. But if we operate under the assumption that it will take just a few days to have the results return, that's still a long time to wait for results to come back. We're looking at this concept of clinically diagnosed cases of COVID to help us expedite our action and our next steps to keep the broader student population safe and our broader faculty and staff population safe. So we will be consulting with our medical director to share the symptoms. The medical director will be working with us. The medical director is actually on site quite often and will be assisting us in making the clinical diagnosis, which we will treat as a positive case. Now, the clinical diagnosis has no other explanation of the symptoms. So a flu test coming back positive can explain symptoms. A strep test, an ear infection can explain symptoms to an extent in younger children. There are different illnesses that can explain the symptoms, and we will certainly be working with the medical director. I'm not a medical doctor, and that's one thing that I will admit to you very candidly. I do trust the medical doctors, and our medical director is one of the best in the region, and we're really, really fortunate to have him as part of our staff. So the medical director will look at the symptoms, will look at the case in its entirety, and will make a diagnosis. And if the diagnosis is that it's a clinical diagnosed case of COVID, we will employ the action plan that's set forth in our reopening plan with regard to the contact tracing, the school closures, the classroom closure, or whatever other steps need to be taken at that point. With regard to contact tracing, I just wanted to share briefly some of the steps we're taking. We're receiving some questions with regard to how will I find out if someone in my child's class tests positive for COVID? Well, once we have a positive case of COVID or even a clinically diagnosed case of COVID, we're going to share that information. We will not share the name of the student or any other personal identifying information, but we are permitted to share that your child may have come in contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID. We're going to look at with whom the student rode the bus or with whom the student traveled to school. Was it by themselves? Was it in the car with a friend? Was it on a school bus that has 60 or at this point, maybe 25 other children on it? And we will notify those individuals. What classes did the child attend? At the elementary school level, it's more limited. They're in a single classroom during the course of the school day. in the middle school and high school, what I refer to as the secondary level, students are interacting with multiple students throughout the course of the day in the different classes. So that would be an even greater order of the contact tracing. With regard to lunch, who did they have lunch with? Who did they interact with during lunch in an informal setting? Specifically during lunch, the masks come off. We would have a conversation with the student and the family to determine if there were additional contacts, perhaps something outside of school that may have implications on the school. We'll have a conversation most certainly with the Westchester County Department of Health and the district medical director to determine next steps and any further conversations that have to take place. And then we would send out a notification to all parents of students who are potentially exposed. That is just a very short, abbreviated version of the contact tracing that happens in our schools. And now for some of the FAQs, and I encourage you to also watch last night's presentation if you haven't done so, because we did answer many of the questions, and we answered many the questions in great detail, I believe. With regard to the FAQs from today, the first and probably the most widely asked question is with regard to daycare and childcare and support on the remote learning days. I believe that has been addressed in this presentation through the program that we're going to be establishing at French Hill and then turning over to a third-party provider. We're working to identify the third-party provider. We have had informal conversations with some agencies that have contacted us and expressed interest. And we will continue to vet the providers to make sure that our students are in the safest possible situation on the remote days. With regard to the program, and I didn't mention this earlier, if you're interested in working in the program, please visit our reopening website. We're going to have a link there so that you can apply to work in the program. We will go through a very thorough vetting process and a very careful vetting process. Fingerprints are going to be required. We'll provide you all of that information. But if you're interested and you like to work with children, you don't need a certification necessarily. We will be providing the training to work with the children in the remote program. We will require that you get fingerprinted, and that's something that's a non-negotiable. And we also would encourage you to share this with your neighbors, share this with friends. Maybe there are college students who are home who might be interested in assisting in some capacity as well, and that would be welcomed. With regard to the program, again, you can apply to work in the program by visiting our reopening website. It's the same website where our reopening plan is posted, the videos to our meetings are posted. I would encourage you to participate in that program. You would start out as an employee of the district, and we would use the monies that are gained through the fee that's charged to pay the staff. And once the third-party provider takes over, we would then move the staff over to the third-party provider as their staff. The second question, can a student switch between remote and hybrid models of instruction? We're asking for a semester-long commitment. There will be a process to change, but we're asking for a semester-long commitment. And this is already such a complex situation to manage in a school district. The return to school is as complex of a situation as I've ever encountered. To then add the changes to the model in a fluid way makes it, in my estimation, nearly unmanageable. So we are asking for a semester-long commitment. That would be much appreciated. If there's something that is of concern, health and well-being of your child, we can have the conversation about switching the models. There will be a process to switch before the semester is over. And Ms. O'Shea, would you like to answer questions 3 and 4?
Sure. Before I go to questions 3 and 4, I just want to point out something related to question 1. So when we're talking about the childcare program or a remote learning center that will take place at French Hill, just so that the expectation is clear, there will be staff on hand who can help students log into whatever homework they need to be doing, or whatever assignments they're given, or synchronous instruction may be provided. But beyond logging in and helping with the basics, we can't really expect that the providers in that program are going to be able to give individualized help to all of the students, given that they all have different expectations for instruction on that day. So it will be available to assist with the technology, but the actual content may not be something that we're helping with in a very detailed way in the remote learning plan. As far as question number 3, can you provide specifics on the remote learning days? We know that this decision to send your children to school in a hybrid model or to keep them home on remote learning is very difficult. And we know that many of the questions we've been asked are for what exactly will my child's day look like in a hybrid model or in a remote learning model. And I have to say that our building principals, their assistant principals, and their building level teams have been working tirelessly to really identify schedules for the hybrid model as well as the full-time remote learning model. What would a student's day be on the day that they're in person in school, on the day that they're learning virtually, on their off day A or B, and what's the full schedule for remote learning? So although we don't have that extremely detailed, we have it outlined in a way that is helping us better prepare and plan for how to meet all the needs of the students. Part of what we're also doing is looking at continuing to look at identifying and prioritizing the key concepts and skills, the enduring understandings related to all of the content area that we are required to provide under New York State regulation. So we are looking at not only how to structure the day, what's the most important content we need to be delivering, and what's really most appropriate at the various levels for students in terms of synchronous and asynchronous instruction and screen time. So these are very detailed decisions that we're working through slowly. What I will tell you is that our staff is dedicated, and all of whatever model you choose as a family will be comprehensive, and your children will be provided a comprehensive education. Why can't we open? Question number 4, why can't we open in a full person model? I think Dr. Hattar did share some of that. We have received that question often. People are asking, the rate of infection is very low in New York and Westchester County. Why can't we open full in person? Some other districts are bringing in all their students, or some grade levels of all their students. When you look at our schools, and after a very detailed examination of the space in our buildings and our number of students, we cannot guarantee that we can adhere to the 6 feet social distancing requirements with all of our students present in school. It's just not realistic given the space constraints we have in our buildings. We are at full capacity at many of our buildings. This gives us an opportunity to be sure that we can keep our students safe, which is the most important piece, and still be able to provide instruction positively on both a hybrid model and, if you choose, in remote learning. So we would love to have all of our students back. It's just not something that is doable in this existing situation.
Thank you. With regard to the idea of the full in-person model, I've received that question quite often, and I understand it. I understand the concern. Our decision is based on the social distancing requirements and the capacity in the schools. That's what the decision is based upon. There are other districts who are in different situations than we are, where they have more space within their buildings that's not utilized, more staff to be able to supervise children in different locations. Our school district, and we actually had a study done by Dr. Paul Seversky to look at the capacity of our schools, and we found that the vast majority of the space is in use throughout the school day. So we don't have the physical space to adhere to the social distancing guidelines and keep enrollment unchanged. So it's one or the other. And the social distancing guidelines are promoting the safety of students. And that's the decision that needed to be made. With regard to The next question, health and safety on the school bus. That has been a question that has come to us in the FAQ document. The health and safety on school. First of all, Friday evening, the board accepted the assignment of our transportation contract to a company. Total Transportation is the name of the bus provider. So Total Transportation is in some of the districts in our region, in the Northern Westchester region. They are a wonderful provider with a wonderful reputation. We shared our expectations in no uncertain terms with them for this coming school year and beyond. And we're confident that they can meet our needs and our requirements. And we had a very specific conversation on health and safety on the school bus. And we were provided some really encouraging information on the steps that they are taking as an organization to provide the safest and healthiest environment. The masks and gloves will be worn by drivers in any buses that have a monitor on them. So in addition to that, the buses will be disinfected daily. Each day, they will be disinfected in between runs. So we have multiple runs in the morning and we have multiple runs in the afternoon. In between runs, high touch surfaces such as the handrails when students get onto the bus or get off the bus, and the seat backs. Quite often as a student makes their way to a seat, they touch the tops of the seats. Those will be disinfected after each run. So multiple times per day, those high touch surfaces will be disinfected. And I'm confident that our new provider will be able to meet our needs. And for those who weren't aware, the Bauman Bus Company did go out of business last spring, and they have taken that contract and they have assigned it to Total Transportation, and the board has accepted that assignment. With regard to question 6, is there a chance that, actually I'll go a little bit out of order. When will the video be posted? The video from last evening was posted this morning. So it is available for view. The content is very similar, but we're speaking to you and we're speaking to you just with the facts as we know them, although the content hasn't changed. Sometimes there's a different way of wording something that you may see in the presentations, but the content from last evening to this morning has not changed. The video was posted yesterday. It takes some time. The first video took about 20 hours to configure for posting. YouTube has to go through a process with the videos. And the reason why we're using this format, why not a Zoom meeting, why YouTube Live, we anticipate high viewership. We had over 1,000 viewers that first night of the presentation, and our Zoom link or Zoom account can accommodate that number of viewers. So what we've decided to do so that everyone can have access, irrespective of where they are, they can go onto YouTube and be able to watch the presentation, and then it can be followed up with questions and answers. So that the video will be posted as soon as possible. We understand that many want to view today's presentation. Last evening's presentation is there, and it's just about the same presentation that we've given. So I would encourage you to, while this video is being processed, please go on to last night's presentation, August 17th. The content's the same. With regard to question 6, is there a chance that we do not reopen on time? This is a situation that is changing almost every hour. I don't want to say literally every hour, because I think we know that that's not true, that it's not changing from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. However, the reality is things are changing so fast. Things are changing dramatically so fast. It's not slight modifications to plans we received. It's complete changes to guidance that we've received, to information that we've received, to the circumstances. So there are some things we're monitoring for the reopening. So some of the things we're monitoring are the supply chains of the items that we have indicated in our reopening plan, which was approved by the Department of Health, which was approved by the State Education Department. We cannot open without those items in place. So we're monitoring supply chain. That's something that that keeps me up at night, to ensure that we have what we have indicated we would have in place in our plans that have been approved. So that's something that I share with you that could potentially impact our timeline. Also, there are some medical accommodation requests that continue to come in. There are new requests for accommodation that we have to monitor with faculty and staff, because we need our faculty and staff to be able to deliver an in-person environment, so an in-person schooling experience for our students. So that's something that we're monitoring, the staffing levels and any hiring that we're going to need to be doing at this late date in August. So those are some of the factors. And then the infection rate. And that would be something that would certainly influence our start date, is the infection rate. Right now, it's terrific. Right now, it's really good by all accounts. I saw Governor Cuomo's presentation yesterday. I was pleased to see that if there is an outbreak in a school, that the state would intervene and they would provide us guidance and assistance. I think that's welcomed, certainly by me and certainly by many school districts. The support of the state government would be helpful, and the state DOH would be really helpful. So the governor's monitoring the infection rate, and we certainly will do the same. Right now, as I mentioned, it is low. It's a matter of 4 or 5 or 6 cases per 1,000 is what we're seeing in terms of positivity. That's not the only metric that is widely regarded, but that is one of the more commonly used metrics. So I share that with you. In closing, we're trying to reopen our schools in the safest possible way. I understand the decision that's before many of our parents with regard to making the choice about remote learning and making the choice about a hybrid model. And it's a choice to be made on safety. That's really what the choice is. Do we believe it's safe enough to return to school? We believe it's safe enough to offer a program, but we respect the opinion and decision of a family to keep their child on a remote learning plan. We understand that. That's why we offered it. We are going to move carefully over these next couple of weeks. We will provide you more information. Our next update is Thursday at 5 p.m. We'll provide another series of updates the following week, and then the week after that. Things are changing. Things are changing quickly, and we're trying to stay ahead of that. And as I think about the reopening of schools, I just think about how important it is to get our students back, for them, for us. How important it's going to be to give them that sense of feeling normal again, and being in their classrooms with their friends, and being in their classrooms with their teachers, and being able to experience learning in person, and how wonderful that will be for their mindsets to be back in school. So our students didn't ask for this. They didn't ask for this situation. Certainly not our kindergarten students, certainly not our high school seniors. And what we're trying to do is provide them the opportunity to return to their schools with their friends. It'll look different. It will feel different, but it's the first step back. And we're looking forward to making that first step back, but we're going to make it very carefully and very cautiously, because we don't want to be in the position where we reopen, we rush ourselves, and then 2 weeks later we're closed, or 3 weeks later we're closed. We really want to do this in a logical and careful way, and that has been our approach since this past spring. So more information will come in certainly Thursday's presentation, but with regard to, is there a chance that we don't reopen on time? There is always that chance. Nothing at this point can surprise me about the reopening of schools, the closure of schools. There's nothing that can surprise me anymore, because we have been facing so many unique challenges and so many unforeseen challenges. So at this point, we're always going to be flexible. We're going to make sure that we're able to adapt to the circumstances. And we're always going to do that with the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff guiding our decisions. Mrs. O'Shea, any closing words?
I would just like to point out some of what we're doing additionally with the staff to get ready for September and the return of our students, whether it's the hybrid model or the remote learning model. In order for our students to meet their instructional goals, their instructional expectations, our teachers need to be prepared with how to teach in this unique situation. So since March, we have provided opportunities for our teachers in professional development, all centered around improving the structures of our remote learning practices. That work has continued through the summer, thanks to Jen Forsberg, Ms. Burns, and their team in technology. We are providing teachers an opportunity to participate in professional development on how to plan and implement synchronous and asynchronous instruction, how to develop fully online lessons. Our teachers have embraced this work since March. Our professional development has been well attended. They are committed to doing what is necessary to help our students learn what we would expect them to learn during the 2021 school year. So this work is ongoing. It's behind the scenes for all of you, but it will continue into the school year. In addition to that, we are looking at what resources do our teachers and students need to be able to work in the remote virtual world. So we are looking at enhancing our resources as well as our professional development for staff, and we want to be in the best position to provide our students in whatever model they're in with an optimal experience. So we are well on our way.
Very good. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us this morning. For those who are considering attending our next update, that's Friday, August, I believe it's August 19th, 20th, Thursday, August 20th at 5 p.m. So our next update will be Thursday, August 20th at 5 p.m. You can access the link very similarly to the way you access the link for today's meeting. You'll go to our reopening website. There will be a link at the bottom of the page. Well, if you scroll down the page for the August 20th, 2020 reopening update. And we hope that you'll participate. We'll have more information certainly on the remote learning center and the childcare provider. Perhaps we'll even have a childcare provider identified by that point. And we look forward to providing you any other information that comes up between now and then, and certainly sharing our schedule of presentations for the coming school week, for the coming week. So thank you again for joining. Have a terrific remainder of the day.
Bye.